Coming to you live from the unconscious mind of John Ferris, it's this week's Apocalypse. I am your co-host, Kevin Lenihan. With me, as always, is the man himself from his Dream Within a Dream. How are you doing today, John? No, don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep in the dream. Can you imagine?
What level are we on?
I don't know what level. Like what, Mario Brothers? 2-1. We're in 2-1.
2-1. That sounds good.
That's a good level. I like
2 for 1.
Yeah, it's not 1-1. That's one everybody knows because they do that and they die and then they give up on Mario and then they don't play it for 5 more years. So we're currently, I'd say we're probably on a dream within one dream.
A dream.
So we're
okay.
So we're as for the top, we're one level down from the top level, as it were, if it can be said to be that. Now, I'm in here astral projecting because I've come to warn you, John. I've come to warn you that there's someone in your dream.
Oh no, not a dream hacker.
It's not me. Yes, exactly. It's a dream hacker. Someone has hacked their way into your dreams. I keep hearing the little skittering around and shuffling in the distance among this. Well, I almost want to call this a shattered hellscape that is your mind.
I'm having pretty good dreams these days.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw earlier a crowd of little sort of cooked turkey legs with little like human sort of feet on them, and they all had my face. Which,
yeah, that's normal, right?
I don't need to tell you how upsetting that would be for anyone else. I was okay with it, to be honest. It made me feel kind of good about myself that I was in your thoughts.
You maybe don't want to wander around in here too much.
No. It's awful. Like it's a sort of weird, echoey, strange space of mists and formless wonders. And every now and then there's a terrible shadow rises. Now, I don't know what the intention of the dream hacker is. Maybe they're here to assassinate you evilly from within.
Wow.
Maybe they just want to, get to know you. Maybe they want to find out your secrets. And maybe they want to, I don't know, put secrets in your mind.
That sounds crazy.
No, that sounds ridiculous. That's an absolutely ludicrous concept, isn't it?
It'll never work.
Yes. However, seeing as we're in the dream world, we can pretty much imagine all that we like, as far as I can tell, anyway. Well, I think so. I'm not really very good at it. I feel like I need to learn better how to, like, manipulate the dream world, and maybe then I can be your, like, I don't know, ethereal somnambulist bodyguard, perhaps.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I meant to use the word somnambulist as well, which I think actually means sleepwalking, but I'm walking in your sleep, so I think it applies.
And who knows, I might learn some dream defense.
Yeah, so we're going to need to, like, and we're in your dream, so it's going to have to be, like, we can only watch movies that you remember.
Oh.
So, obviously we're going to need to watch some movies to learn how to dreamcraft and fight dream hackers. So, is there any sort of, there's a strange sort of odd shelf in the distance. Hold on. Okay, yeah, there's a couple of DVDs on here. In fact, it's the same 3 DVDs over and over and over again.
Yeah, well,
the Blu-ray.
Clearly, this is on my mind a bit now. You know, you've kind of put the fear of God into me, so my mind, my subconscious has conjured up a few movies that might help.
Like a self-defense, like your body's own sort of natural defense system, like the white blood cells of your mind. I'm hoping it's not like some kind of my body betraying me. Okay, well, let's have a wee look through this raft. So we have a strange sort of crusty Blu-ray here of Christopher Nolan's Inception from 2010. We have a very sort of rotten-looking videotape of Joseph Ruben's Dreamscape from 1984. And is this a laserdisc? There's a laserdisc here of Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street, also from 1984.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Don't judge me.
I won't. You got a laserdisc in your mind, man. That's pretty goddamn cool as far as I'm concerned. All right, well, let's sit down on this strange, gnarled, skin-covered sofa here that you've imagined up for us and get watching. Okay, cool. Right, well, I feel like we're, on the verge of some kind of great sort of internal discovery here. as far as mind manipulation goes. So we just got through watching Christopher Nolan's Inception, which was a fascinating education tool on manipulating the dreamscape. So, John, what did you think of Inception?
See, this is going to be another one of these like contentious things, I think, because it seems from everything that you read that you either have to love or hate Inception. There's no like middle ground. Unfortunately, I'm going to buck the trend, and I'm kind of in the middle somewhere.
Alright, fair enough.
Because I really like Inception. Does a lot of things very, very well.
Yeah.
But I can understand why people. Basically, it's not as clever or as hard to follow as people think, and I think a lot of it comes to the fact that like certain things don't make sense, and if you think about it too much, it will ruin it, and it'll almost, you know, there are elements of this that do not make sense, and instead of people just accepting that, they go no, and they try to almost retcon, or they try to add their own lore onto it to make it make sense. But
they try to put in things that aren't in the movie.
Exactly. But I mean, you can't deny, like, Christopher Nolan is good at these kind of high concept films.
Yeah,
he's maybe not the best at characters.
He's a great guy for sort of look at what we can do with films now.
Yeah.
Look at how cool we can make films these days. I think he did that with the way, like, one of his first movies, Memento, is very much like that of look how well and cleverly we were able to edit this film to sort of play in sort of reverse in this way, and you know, show you a story in a sort of a backwards kind of way, but through modern editing techniques.
And I mean that's a very good example of Christopher Nolan, like, kind of making this conscious decision to make the movie more complicated than the story actually is. Because I mean, I remember when when Memento came out on DVD. And there was the secret way to watch it chronologically.
I was just going to say, there was like a point you had to hit the button at the right point when the menu was moving past.
Which is kind of fucking cool. It's like,
it's like another cool, like, Christopher Nolan, look what we can do now thing. Yeah.
It reminds you of like those old video games that, like Mortal Kombat or something. There's secret characters. Like, no, there isn't. Yeah. It's like you have to press the button at exactly this point when something happens, and you can play as Reptile or something, you know.
Yeah, and half the time they were lies, but sometimes they were true. Yeah. That was the fun thing about Mortal Kombat, especially, was it like they would hear people would put rumors about when, like, Mortal Kombat was in the arcade.
Yeah.
There would be rumors about secret characters and rumors about, like, oh, you can do this and you can do that. And then they would be like, here, see, when we do the next revision, we're going to put that in, right? Yeah. And then they would put those in. They would put secrets in with, like, new revisions. So, yeah, it's really cool that, like, there's this weird thing on the Memento DVD that, like, because the menu on it was all timing based, which was a weird concept, because it was like play movie would come up and then it would fly past the screen and then go to, like, options, like sound options, and then extra features would swing by, and you'd be like, this is,
when you think about that now, you just kind of go, that's just annoying.
It'd be kind of irritating. But back whenever DVDs were, like, people were deliberately finding clever ways to do things with the concept of a DVD, it was like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like in The Matrix, you had that follow the white rabbit thing that they had, where it was basically cool. Like, you turned it on, and then while you were watching the movie, at certain points, a wee white rabbit would pop up in the corner of the screen, and if you hit the button, you get a wee, like, relevant behind-the-scenes bit to the scene you were watching, which I thought was really cool. But again, like, now I think of it like, that's a really crappy way to watch a film, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Christopher Nolan has this thing where it's just like, I mean, you look at something like, even like The Dark Knight is just so, I don't know, there's something about that film, the way it's cut together and all, and how dramatic it is, and like the way they use modern techniques to film it, or like, but Inception uses, I'd say, clever camera work and really, really, really good CG and practical effects.
Yeah.
To sort of do this sort of like something that could never have been done before. Yeah. I think it uses some things that are like old techniques and uses them in interesting and new ways.
Yeah, I think he's one of these directors who, I appreciate that these type of directors who try to make things as practical effects wise. They try to use as many practical effects as possible, and use like CG sparingly and use it to almost enhance the practical effects. And he no matter what anyone thinks of this movie, you can't deny that it is visually impressive.
It's beautiful.
There's scenes in it that are absolutely breathtaking, and I remember seeing it in the cinema and being blown away by it. And it's one of these movies. It is like, again, it's almost it is a dying breed. You have to pay attention to it to follow it. Because there is a lot of rules, and there's a lot of kind of, to be honest, that's kind of one of the problems I have with it. Is there's like a whole section at the start that feels like a video game tutorial. It's basically, as soon as Ariadne comes onto the scene, it's a video game tutorial that I almost want like a edited down version of this movie that kind of cuts that bit a wee bit shorter, because after you've seen it the first time, you know the rules. You know, okay, there's levels to dreams and all this bullshit. But,
but they do need. It is necessary for them to explain that at that point.
Oh yes, in the film. Definitely, and like the whole idea of an architect and like why she's needed to be the architect, why Dom can't do it, why they need this team, why is it like so involved, where they have to go get Tom Hardy, who's my favorite character in the whole movie. They have to get him because he's a forger, and a forger in dreams is a bit different. It's basically like he's like from Mission Impossible, where they have the masks that they put on.
Yeah,
he kind of does
like their Q in a way. Like he designs their disguises, and their gear and all that kind of crap. Yeah, so it's kind of like Ariadne is the level designer.
Yeah,
if you want to use like a video game design kind of, she's like, Ariadne's the level designer, and then Tom Hardy's character is the like, oh no, I do all the game mechanics, I do the guns, and I do this and I do that. Yeah, and it's like, and then if something I've done, if I need to change the level a bit, I can also do that. Because he like adds things, he's added things to her level design, and stuff as well. So like that's really cool. So yeah, they do a really good job of justifying why everyone is there. No one is there for no reason except maybe I can't remember his character's name. Watanabe, his character. He's there because he wants to make sure it goes well, I guess. Yeah, because he's invested in it. Saito is his character's name.
Yes, he's there basically to get shot and add a bit of tension.
Yeah, he's there to be imperiled, I guess, because he's like, you shouldn't be here. Because they do say multiple times, there's no place for tourists.
Yes.
On this, and he's like, and eventually he acknowledges that whenever he realizes he has made sort of a bad call.
Because like just what I was saying earlier, where Nolan's not the best with characters. Like apparently the whole thing with Dom, which is why am I blanking on his name now?
Dom.
Leonardo DiCaprio. My God, why did
his name's is Cobb? He's Cobb.
Dom Cobb, isn't it?
I don't know. I don't remember him having a first name.
He's one of the few that, because I think the only people who refer to him as Dom is his wife, his dead wife, and the old professor guy, who's played by Michael Caine. But yes. So anyway, now that I've remembered his name. Apparently, like, he more or less created that character with Christopher Nolan, because like when the first kind of scripts came to him, he wanted to flesh out the character a bit more and like kind of go into more of a backstory. And like it's kind of a shame that the rest of the people don't get as much of a
because he has a good backstory. I like his backstory.
He does, but they kind of dwell on it too much. It's kind of what the movie's about, really, when you get down to it, though. But like, I find it hard to believe that he's the only one who has kind of some kind of issues that can, play a part in this dream sequence. You're like, everyone else's subconscious is spot on.
Yeah, everyone else is grand, but he's got this freaking murderous ex-wife projection following him around, trying to kill him and everyone else. For some reason, nobody else seems to have anything even resembling that, do they?
No. But again, you could probably explain it away where, like, they're professionals. Well, actually, you could explain it for everyone apart from just who you mentioned of Sato. He is just here as a tourist, as you said. So surely something should be coming from him as well. But it's these minor things. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of wee plot holes, a lot of wee like issues. But it's what I said earlier. This is a high concept movie. You kind of again, some people won't be able to, and that's fine. You more or less have to just accept it or just like kind of gloss over it.
Yeah. It's like a special version of switching your brain off.
Yeah.
Where you still actually need to pay attention.
It's quite strange.
But you have to also willingly accept some nonsense along the way. Which is fine, as long as it's fun. And you know what?
It is.
I think this film is a boatload of fun because it's so ridiculous. And every time something really dramatic happens, it's always extremely impressive.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the part that they used I'd say probably the most to promote this film whenever you see the trailers and stuff is there's a certain moment where Joseph Gordon-Levitt, his character Arthur, is like, there's a thing where he's asleep in a van, but he's also in a hotel.
Yeah.
In there, and then the van is going badly around a corner and flipping, and then he's just like, in his dream, they're all like shunting up onto the walls and on the ceiling, trying to fight each other, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it looks great when it's happening. It looks extremely cool,
especially when you remember that van is in a dream. So
in another dream,
so like there's gravity in your dreams that affect the consciousness that you have in the next level of dream. It's I don't know
in the world, but he's ultimately still back in the real world, just sitting in a chair on a train on a plane. Which is like, okay, yeah, whatever, lads, but that's fine because look what's happening. Oh my, isn't it so pretty and cool looking?
Yeah, but I mean that's it. Visually stunning. Like I really like very early on. There's there's the part where the team are kind of going into Sato's mind. It's basically the opening of it, and to wake up Dom and the rest of them, they kind of dunk them into water. And there's I love this scene where it's just him standing in this empty building while the water just rushes in through every window.
It's exploding through the windows one by one on either side. Yeah, that is really cool image. Especially because you can then connect it. You're connecting it to this thing you've just seen of him falling into a bathtub.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's actually really, really cool.
I will say this, though. If this is kind of like if this is like an idea of what Christopher Nolan dreams about, that he needs to read some more books or something. I mean, it's all like just cities and there's nothing, no dragons or nothing here.
I mean, it makes sense in as much as the way they explain it in the film. It's that they have to make it seem like a real place while not being a specific real place.
It's like the what do you call that when you can control your dreams? The lucid
dreaming.
Lucid dreaming, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, like there's. I kind of wish that they had focused more on some of the secondary characters, particularly Ames and Arthur's relationship, Joseph Gordon-Levitt and
because they
Tom
don't
Hardy.
get on, they don't get on, and you kind of like. You feel like there's a backstory there, like they don't. Well, Arthur doesn't like Eames, at least.
Yeah,
he doesn't like that they have to work with him, And it's sometimes it's fun to just throw that in and have it be a thing you can make up yourself. But I would almost like to watch a separate movie about them and some horrible thing that went wrong that he still resents him for.
I don't even need to know the backstory of that, but I kind of found them the most interesting characters, and the fact that they had this like, animosity towards you, like very passive aggressive as well.
Like it's a little disappointing when it's like, okay, right, now you're all going to go into a dream and I'm going to stay here, and therefore they can't interact anymore because now they're in separate levels.
Yeah.
While he's in like, one of them's in Hotel World while the other one's down in James Bond land.
And it is James Bond land.
Yeah. That's how I remember them. So there's crappy rainy New York, and then below that there's the world of the hotel, and then below that there's James Bond land, and then I guess below that it's scary limbo. Ooh.
And Christopher Nolan actually did say that third level was it was kind of based on Her Majesty on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
The worst James Bond film, yeah,
because I think he liked it or something, or he maybe liked that snow scene. Because
I think that's the George Lazenby one, isn't it?
I don't know. I
haven't a clue. I'm pretty sure that's the one with George Lazenby that nobody remembers, because it's set on a ski resort and it's all about, I think it's basically got the plot of Zoolander. It's where they took the plot of Zoolander from. It's about like this evil guy who's hypnotizing sexy model ladies so that they can have like trigger words so that they can be assassins for him. And also right. James Bond walks around in a kilt for a big chunk of that movie as well, which I remember being quite amusing.
That's ridiculous. I don't think I've seen it. Maybe I should now.
I think Diana Rigg's in it, and then he marries her in it, and then she immediately gets killed in a drive-by shooting right after they get married. It's not great.
No,
it's not a good one. But anyway,
well, he enjoyed it. Christopher Nolan enjoyed it.
Oh, sure. Apparently so. Yeah.
One of the best things I think about this movie for me anyway is the music by Hans Zimmerman.
Yeah, which we can get into the music. There's going to be a good comparison for music, I think, very soon. Oh
yes,
that I will love to explore. But yes,
the slowed down Edith Piaf song. Mm-hmm. That they use,
very cool.
Yeah, they use it in the actual movie for them, like as a
it's like
warning.
Timer.
Yeah, like to let them know you're going to get kicked out of this level of dream, and amazingly clever of Hans Zimmerman. He actually slowed down that track, and he's basically composed the music from this slow down version. And if you can actually go on YouTube and listen to people who like have knocked down the Edith Piaf song to like 70% to know its tempo, and it sounds like, particularly there's a song Half Remembered Dream. It's basically the Inception theme, and that's what it is. He's just basically copied that one verbatim, the start of it, and he's obviously added stuff later, and he's worked on them, but it's absolutely amazing. And not to mention the rest of the music that he's written for, which is incredible. And it did unfortunately start that whole trend.
Yeah, that was mainly because of the trailer, more than anything, I think.
But that was also that was coming from this this time dilation of the Edith Piaf song, because that kind of happens when you slow it down, because it has this it has this big jarring kind of like brass sound. So it makes sense in this movie, not so much in every other movie that came after it.
Yeah. Other people use it because they wanted to remind people of Inception.
Yeah.
It had no thematic relevance at all. They just wanted to throw it in because, here, remember Inception and how cool that was and how cool the trailer for that was? Well, we're doing it in this one. Because it does a really good job of making you feel tense when it's happening.
Yeah.
It's very, very clever. So yeah, the music in this is wonderful. Much like a lot of the other like technical aspects of this movie are just excellent. Again, we've talked about this. The visual effects are phenomenal. And when they're practical, they're brilliant. And whenever they use like CG to augment it, they're very, very nice as well.
Yeah.
It's all like there's a part where sort of a city folds over almost.
Yes.
Whenever Ariadne and Cobb are like training in her dream or whatever. And it looks so cool. It made me feel weird and like sort of with vertigo a little bit when you watch it happen. It made me feel slightly upset.
Yeah, and then that's it, because then after she kind of does this, like, because they're in Cobb's subconscious.
Yeah.
And like his subconscious starts like noticing her and stuff like that. And
whenever people start to turn to look at her and stuff, like in the crowds, it's really creepy.
Yeah.
That stuff's really clever. And like, yeah, the explanation for it makes sense as well. I like that. You know, they do a lot of good stuff with sort of the justifying why things happen in dreams. I like whenever how they explain that like the reason it's raining whenever they go into Cillian Murphy's first dream is like, oh, I guess he forgot to go to the bathroom before he got on the plane. So they imply that like the fact that it's raining is because he needs to take a piss, I guess, which is weird and puts a whole weird spin on the rain that's falling on them in my head. Initially, I was like, that's a bit trogging, lads. Yep. I don't know about this.
Golden shower.
Indeed. Thanks for being the one to say that, John.
Yep.
So, yeah, I like that. Now, as you say, like, there are, like, just little plot holes all over the place and stuff, and... You know, but I don't think it does much good to dwell on those, really.
No, like it can actually be kind of it can be fun to kind of pick apart, you know, because this is maybe my third or fourth time seeing this movie, so I kind of almost enjoyed that you know, you're going, that's why that bit's confusing because that doesn't make sense or something. It's like, you know. Again, it's very high concept, so these things are almost unavoidable, but I think he does a pretty damn good job at trying to tell the story that he's telling, and you know, the character of Cobb is very, very nuanced in the guilt that he has, and like this slow reveal of what he did to his wife, and you know, albeit for kind of the, like, you know, he was trying to do a good thing in a way, but it ultimately was his downfall. But and like, in fact, just on that, there's a bit of a similarity to a movie that we talked about months ago, Solaris, where in his words, he says, "You're the best that I could do," to the apparition or whatever you want to call it of his wife, because that's not his wife. That is not. Nope. There's even a point where Arthur says to, or Ariadne asks Arthur what was his wife actually like, and he says she was lovely, and that's not what you see in this movie. You see a horrible, like, she is out to destroy them every time. You see a destructive, murdering, angry lunatic. Yeah, and she even says to him, like, his conjuration, much like in Solaris, when his conjured wife says to him, like, I'm not her. Yeah. I'm how you remember her. And it's kind of is the same. Like, she says, you remember her being suicidal, so I'm suicidal. Yeah. And, like, it's kind of the same thing in this, where the thing that most burns in his memory is the last time he saw her. Yeah, which was right before she threw herself out of a fucking window. And kind of how well, to her it wasn't vindictive, because she thought, again, she thought she was helping him. She thought he was the one trapped in the dream world. So but to him it's kind of vindictive what she does. Like, she gets herself declared sane by a load of which is suspicious in itself. I don't know if that's a thing that you can actually do. Can you? I don't know. Can I go to a doctor now and say, here, mate, will you sign a piece of paper that says I'm sane? Because I don't have donkey brains. Yeah, exactly. It's just like that. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He gets a certificate that says he does not have donkey brains. Well, but see if you did. See if you had a piece of paper that said Kevin Lenihan is entirely sane. That would be. I wouldn't think twice of it. I'd maybe go, oh my god, what happened? Did he had to get that? But if you showed me 3 or 4 of them from different doctors, I would start going, right.
It raises more questions than it answers, most definitely.
I kind of think he could have got away with, not got away with it. It's not like he actually killed his wife, but I'm sure he could have explained himself.
Aye.
Especially...
That's not a thing that they necessarily establish. They kind of do, but they don't. In that, like, if that was the case and he had to justify himself to the authorities, would he be able to bring up this concept of dream hacking and have them understand what it is and believe him? Or is this a secret thing that is only known to a few people?
Yeah, it's not really...
Because they don't explore that. They imply that the Cillian Murphy's character has had some kind of training against this kind of thing, though. Yeah. As if it is something that is known, but then you wonder if it's still
he was the scarecrow, so he knows about nightmares.
Because whenever Ariadne is shocked by the whole thing, whenever he first brings her into a dream thing,
so
she doesn't know about it.
So it's not well known. It does seem like it's a new kind of corporate espionage, really.
That nobody knows about except the select few people and the ultra rich, I guess.
Yep.
I don't know, but anyway, so I don't know how he would explain himself without
he doesn't even really
like a lunatic.
He doesn't even really need to, though, because he can just say, she was suicidal and that was it. Yeah. Like the dream stuff doesn't have to be brought up. But anyway, we're actually digressing into what we said that you shouldn't do with this.
That we wouldn't do. Yeah, no. Oh God,
you shouldn't really like pick apart the holes too much. Well, but again,
we're picking it.
That is kind of why there's some people will just bounce off this movie. I mean, there's different reasons some people might not like it, but to me, I could see people, and they're justified as well to know that, because a lot of people do bum and blow about how clever and how complicated it is, and it's like it is and it isn't. It's overly complicated for what it has to be, almost, or it kind of tries to portray that in a way.
Yeah,
but it's definitely. But I still don't think that detracts from it. I think it's enjoyable. Yeah. I think all the aspects in it culminate to make an entertaining movie, and they're all separately done well. I mean, the acting's great in it.
Yeah, everybody's brilliant.
Yeah,
everybody's great.
We didn't even touch on it really until now, because you kind of forget to almost. It's
the concept of the movie is so overwhelming that all the other and like the technical things that are going on are so overwhelming that you almost forget. Like, these people's performances are actually great in it. Like Marianne Cotillard is fantastic as Nell, as Mal or Nell or whatever her name is. Like, she's brilliant, because she is like, there are certain points when you see her in the movie and it's scary.
Yeah.
She's almost is kind of like a slasher when she shows up. You're like, uh-oh, someone's about to get fucking stabbed or murdered somehow. Yeah. Because she's just walked in, and
she's like that quintessential like femme fatale. She's I mean, she's beautiful and all that, so that's part and parcel of the femme fatale thing, but also just like, as soon as you see her, shit's going down. Someone's getting stabbed or something's happening.
Yeah, it put me in mind of a wee bit, sort of like if you've seen it, It Follows.
Yes.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of the behavior of the monster in that, is the way he describes her is that she's always like, the reason he can't be involved in making the mazes is because she lives in his subconscious and she will know the way in.
Yeah.
And she will always, and even when she doesn't know, she'll still be slowly working her way towards them constantly, wherever they are in said maze, which is very much like the It Follows monster does in It Follows, where it's just this thing that's always walking towards wherever you are, no matter how far you go. So I think she has this real sinister edge to her in that context.
Yeah.
They humanize her a lot in other ways and a lot of other scenes, but that, I think, makes her a wee bit more scary when she shows up, especially when you're like, oh no, this is his crazy subconscious memory of her being mental. essentially, and being murderous and vindictive, as you said. So yeah, she's scary. Leonardo DiCaprio's brilliant in this as well. Like, everybody's really good. It's hard to pick out one person and say that they're bad.
It's all strong performances.
They're better than anyone else. Yeah.
And again, really, apart from Leonardo DiCaprio, I don't think anyone was really given much to work with. Like, in a script wise. So that's why it's even more impressive. The fact that Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Tom Hardy, they had this whole wee thing, and then Ellen, or Elliot Page, as he's called now, unfortunately is given this role that it's the exposition dump, or just has to ask questions.
Yeah, Ariadne, the character for Ariadne is very much you're here, so we've given you a function on the team.
Yeah.
But you're here so we can explain how this all works.
You are the info dump,
to the audience, essentially. Yeah.
Which
you're the channel through which the audience will learn the mechanics of how this all works.
Yeah.
Which you do need.
Yeah, I don't know how you'd really avoid that, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, aside from giving people technical manuals as they walk into the cinema, this is a much more elegant solution than that.
Well,
certainly.
I don't know. That might be an interesting new way to consume media.
Yeah, so like Elliot Page doesn't have much necessarily to work with character development wise. Mm-hmm. I don't think that character has much of an arc.
No.
But,
I think it was quite telling. I found an interview with Christopher Nolan, and he described like the kind of makeup of this team as kind of the only thing that he has really any experience, and that's making movies. Where like Cobb is the director, Ames is like I forget he gave everyone a role basically that merged something in filmmaking, and I think that essentially is the way he thinks. It is very very technical, and it's it's not very emotive basically. So I think he really needs actors as strong as these to get anything like this out.
Yeah. And he is a guy who he always finds great actors for his films. I mean, you look at The Prestige.
He's basically just got the Dark Knight cast to come in for this.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people from that movie in this movie. Dark Knight Rises specifically.
Yes,
I think,
that's the one actually.
Yeah, because I think that was the film that came next.
Yeah.
Because he was working on The Dark Knight, and then one of his conditions for making a sequel to it, because it was so successful, was that he got to make Inception first.
Yeah.
And that's how Inception happened at all. Because you can imagine if he was like Christopher Nolan, who made Memento, and Christopher Nolan, who made Batman Begins, and then came to a studio with like, here, I've got this crazy thing about dream hackers going in and putting ideas into people's brains, and it's all these different levels, and it's going to be really expensive because we're going to need to do these really intricate practical effects and computer effects, and you can just see a studio going, no, don't be ridiculous, bugger off. But after The Dark Knight comes out, and it's like the most successful thing ever, and everybody loves it, it's like, oh, people will go to see a film because Christopher Nolan's name is on it now.
Exactly.
So here we go. We'll be able to get, not only will we be able to get this out of him, but even if this damages his reputation, even if it turns out bad, people will still go see the sequel to The Dark Knight, so it won't hurt that. So you can see them at that point, they're like, oh, okay, right, cool.
We can take a risk here.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you look at his films, and he's like, we got Guy Pearce to be in Memento, and he's brilliant in that. Yeah. And friggin' The Prestige is fantastic.
Great movie.
Everybody's great in The Prestige. You got Hugh Jackman is brilliant. Christian Bale is great. David Bowie is fantastic as Nikola Tesla. It's so good.
Inspired choice.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So, he just, every one of his films, you just look at it. Every time I see one of his new films, I think, okay, yeah, I see why he's so obsessed with getting his films into a cinema. I haven't seen Tenet yet
because
he was so just stubborn about it playing in cinemas.
Yeah.
And you can understand why a filmmaker like Christopher Nolan would be like, I want this to be in a cinema. You know, this needs to be in a cinema. When you look at a lot of his other films. So, yeah, I could see that being his thing. But the reason I haven't seen it is, I mean, it didn't review terribly well. It was very sort of middling, but I still kind of want to see it. I almost want to see it in a cinematic, in a cinema.
Yeah.
Because it's a Christopher Nolan movie. But that hasn't really been possible, obviously, in recent times. So I've been sitting on that one. But a lot of his films are extremely cinematic.
Yeah.
And he is a really good just metric for look what we can do with films nowadays. Look at this new thing we've been able to do with movies because of where we're at. And I think Inception is just is maybe like the distillation of that in his career. Of like, nobody could have made a film quite like this until now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, John made the fatal mistake of actually falling asleep again in his dreams. So now we're down on a whole other level here. Sort of a misty sort of forest kind of scenario, but all the trees seem to be made out of marshmallows and, I don't know, is that cockroaches?
I hope it's marshmallows.
It looks like there's little cockroaches in them. Anyway, if I look at it for too long, they start twisting and changing and turning into other things. So I'm trying not to look too hard. But there's a dark figure is dancing between the trees, and it seems too controlled to belong in this place. So I think the dream hacker, whoever they are and whatever their intent, is getting closer. They're spiraling in on our maze. So I guess we'd better move on then to our little VHS videotape here. Joseph Ruben's Dreamscape from 1984.
Ooh.
A film as old as we are.
Yeah.
So, John, what did you think about Dreamscape?
Dreamscape. Dreamscape's definitely a product of its time.
Yeah.
That's like the nice way of putting it.
Okay. Is there a less nice way of putting it?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a movie where the hero goes into a woman's dream to have his way with her.
He does indeed.
When she just thinks it's a dream. So yeah, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah, it is.
It's okay. It's actually it's kind of enjoyable because the dreams in it are. Again, I don't want to be too harsh on the special effects in this because it is as old as we are. It was made in 1984, and it hasn't aged well. Let's put it that way. But there's something kind of endearing about the bad special effects in the dreams.
Yeah, it's kind of, and it's got that sort of extra level to it, which I think works in its favor in that it is supposed to be a dream.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, so it can kind of look a bit rubbish because you can always explain it away of like, no, well, dreams, it has to look different, doesn't it?
Yeah, sometimes when you wake up from a dream and you're trying to explain to someone why a thing in your dream was so scary, and then you come to realize as you're describing what it was that it wasn't scary at all. But you found it scary for some reason, and it's like it's that sort of like unreal sort of level of like, but you don't understand because it was like, it was weird, know.
And it's also like, I mean, this is one of the first, like, as far as I know, this is one of the first kind of depictions kind of like this of like people going into dreams cinematically anyway. I'm sure there was books and things like that written, but it was fairly new concept for cinema. As far as I know, dreams might have been shown in certain ways, but like people consciously going into other people's dreams wasn't, and they do it by like having like weird architecture as well. Like the kid's dream has like the doors are all weird angles and things like that. It almost looks like a Tim Burton set or something like that.
Yes, it does. Yeah, like something someone drew incorrectly.
Yeah, which you know isn't necessarily how any of us might dream up a place, but it's a good visual representation of this is different and this isn't quite how you remember it. And there's actually like a really cool windy staircase at that point that looks pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of all right. The dreams are probably the best part of the movie.
Yeah, whenever they do weird dreamy stuff, it is cool. Now, I will say that like something I noticed right away about this movie, when we were talking about the music in Inception, the music in this film is friggin' bonkers.
I would go a step further and say it's fucking awful.
It's kind of terrible. You're right. It is awful. It's like you're listening to it and you're like, sometimes it's like victorious, like crescendoing, and then while it's doing that, it'll just turn into and you're like, what key is that in? And you're like, and the answer is it's not. It's like it just changes key at a moment's notice, and I guess that's to give
dream music.
Yeah, the impression of being otherworldly or whatever, but it's incredibly distracting for pretty much the entire film. Anytime there's music, it's just this, like, I imagine just somebody in like a mad professor wig sitting over a keyboard with, you know, one finger on each hand out, just randomly stabbing at a moog.
It sounds like that.
Yeah, it's wild. It made me laugh at times where I think they were trying to create tension, but the music was so just terrible that I couldn't help.
The weird thing
laugh.
is the composer for the music was Morris Jarre, who he did Lawrence of Arabia and things like that. You know, this is a guy who he's pretty damn good at what he does. But he made this decision to go with the synths and go this route. And I'm not saying it's just because it's synth that's why it sounds crap, but it can be a bit overbearing at times. There's times where it is just non-stop. As you're saying, it's like this continuous crescendo that just won't stop, won't let up. Yeah. And it seems to be playing at a volume that would burst your eardrums.
Yeah, and it's the fact that it's like the key just wanders. It doesn't have like key changes. It's in one key for one bar, and then a different key for a different bar, and then a whole other key the next bar. And I was just like, when is the music going to stop?
I thought you were going to ask, when is the music going to start?
Because when does this collection of sounds become music? I suppose might have been maybe more what my subconscious was looking for, because it made me feel really unsettled, and maybe that was the intention. But I didn't feel unsettled in a way that I felt lent itself well to the tone of the film. It just sort of upset me a little bit.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, when you look at like the effects in this movie, I really like the effects in this movie, and they are very of their time.
Yeah.
But they do work with me in that way of, as I was saying before, this is a dream and it's strange. And there's a point quite early on, it's like the first time he goes into a dream where he's falling off a building and it's very weird looking. And if this happened in another film, you'd be like, that looks rubbish. But the fact that it's supposed to be someone falling in a dream, maybe to me made me feel more like, oh, maybe it's supposed to look this jarring and weird.
You still laughed, though, right?
I did, yes. It was very funny when he's spinning around in a circle one way and the ground is like, woo, underneath, and wow, like snap zooming up towards him or whatever it is that's happening. And I did enjoy it, and it was funny, but all that stuff I think works quite well. When they have like weird sort of, they do a little bit of stop motion animation here and there.
Yeah, and it looks well for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
The snake man.
Yeah, the snake man, the lizard man that's like chasing the kid around in his dreams.
Yeah,
there's certain points where it actually just looks really well in the scene.
Yeah.
and almost you're like, is that stop motion? Maybe it's not. And then it moves a bit too much, and you go, oh yeah, it is.
Or they try to have him attack it, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
he's maybe we're reaching for the stars with this one.
Yeah, it's no like it reminded me a wee bit of the old like Ray Harryhausen special effect things, with like, Jason and the Argonauts and all that kind of stuff of like fighting the skeletons and all that stuff. And I remember whenever I was a kid thinking that was amazing, and it still is very, very impressive. But the problem again with stop motion, is that you can pretty much always spot that that's what it is that you're seeing.
Yeah.
So it does take you out of it. But once again, I feel as though it's maybe a case of, well, it's a dream, and dreams are weird, and I almost feel like I'm forgiving this film a lot for those kinds of things because it's supposed to seem weird and strange and not real.
Yeah. It's what kind of special effects do your dreams have then?
It's mostly just little sort of lollipop sticks with faces painted on them, going ooga booga, I'm a scary monster. That's pretty much it.
The other thing with this movie is it has a great cast.
It does. Dennis Quaid, of course.
It's kind of... yes, that's
sorry.
It's exactly who I was talking about.
Sorry for that derisory snort there. I mean, it could be worse. Like, it could be Randy Quaid. Like,
yeah. Well, who were they? I read somewhere they were looking for the kind of to play the one of the antagonists, Tommy. They were looking at what do you call him from Dances with Wolves?
Kevin Costner?
Yeah. They approached him.
They wanted Kevin Costner to be the sociopath?
Yeah. And he turned it down because he was leading man material. He doesn't play second fiddle to no one, apparently.
Well, that's a good thing for me because we got the king of second fiddle in this. David Patrick Kelly, who's an actor that I think he's one of those character actors that's always like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah. He's kind of like, he looks, and maybe this is offensive, but he kind of looks like a discount Sean Penn.
Maybe, I suppose. Maybe putting the word discount on that certainly does make it offensive. But I really like him. I mean, I remember him most from probably The Warriors.
Yes, yeah.
Because he's a right wee bugger in that one.
Yeah, I mean, he's not exactly adorable in this.
No. He's like, he does that kind of character really well. He's very, very good at playing psychopaths and sociopaths.
As soon as he started murdering the saxophone, I wanted some harm to come to him.
As soon as Dennis Quaid started playing the saxophone, I wanted some harm to come to him. So I feel like that's the saxophone's fault.
I like saxophones.
I don't.
Oh, well,
I don't like them very much.
Well, that's fine.
I like them sometimes, but I don't know. I feel like the way the saxophone is presented in this movie is cliched and painful, where it's just like, yeah, I'm cool, I play the sax.
Yeah, it's not exactly like, they're not exactly like showing it in the light of, say, John Coltrane or anything.
No.
They're showing it more in the kind of the greased up guy from the Lost Boys.
Yes, I still believe. That guy.
Yep.
The most memorable saxophonist in history, unfortunately.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Step aside, John Coltrane. It's me, the guy from Lost Boys.
Sorry, the greased up guy from Lost Boys.
Yeah, the greasy guy from Lost Boys. What plays the saxophone? Yeah, so I really like David Patrick Kelly. He's great. Of course, you've got Max von Sydow, who is always brilliant.
He's brilliant, and everything. Chris Plummer, who... Oh, yeah. Those two in particular, I kind of felt were wasted in this movie.
Yeah, they don't have a lot. Christopher Plummer does some good sort of I'm so evil stuff.
Christopher Plummer actually delivers some lines that, with the lesser actor, would have been absolutely woeful. He delivers them in such a way that you go, wow, that kind of worked. Almost shocked.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you see him, you know he's evil.
Yeah,
just the way he's sitting there, comporting himself, and the way he's looking, he's just got something about where he's got one eyebrow slightly raised, and you're like, oh, he's the bad guy.
And they're two actors who I kind of for a while always mistook for each other. as well. It didn't help that they were both in Skyrim at the same. They both did voices in Skyrim as well.
Was Christopher Plummer in Skyrim? I know Max von Sydow is.
Yeah, I'm near sure Christopher Plummer is as well.
You're probably right.
I'll have to double check now because now you have me second guessing myself.
Research is for chumps. No thanks.
Let's just say things and hope no one ever calls us out on it.
Aye, but like Dennis Quaid, I think Dennis Quaid is well cast in this movie because he's a smarmy git in this film, and he does that very well. He's got. We were talking about David Patrick Kelly being discount Sean Penn, and like I look at Dennis Quaid and I think dime store Harrison Ford, of course. But he's all right. I mean, he plays the character well enough because he's supposed to be like a guy who doesn't take life very seriously.
A ne'er-do-well.
A ne'er-do-well indeed. He has these special powers that he uses for crappy purposes, it seems.
For horse races mainly.
Yeah, no, I never really understood exactly how he was winning the horse races with his special powers.
It never really goes into exactly what his special powers are.
No, I mean, they show you footage of him supposedly as a teenager moving a little steel ball with his mind.
Yeah.
But they don't really get into specifics beyond that, except that he was the most gifted one I ever worked with.
Yeah.
And like they seem to maybe imply psychic ability, like because there's telekinesis and then there's telepathy.
Yeah.
So as if it's like is he a telepath and telekinetic? I assume he is. It is proven at a certain point that he is a telepath because he's able to go into people's minds.
Yeah.
Without the aid of the special dream hacking machine, eventually. But I was wondering, were they implying with the horse racing thing that he was somehow also clairvoyant, that he could somehow see the future?
It's either that, or I remember seeing an episode of one of Darren Brown's many series where he had the losing ticket and he goes up and he like slaps the side of the thing and says, "This is the winning ticket," and they give them the money. So it could be something like that where it just messes with people's brains.
Could be, but he's definitely got the horse, because you see the horse win and then it zooms in on his racing form and the winning horse is circled on it. So maybe he's psychically mucking around with the other horses' brains and making them run slower. I don't know. I guess we're just supposed to think, ooh, eerie, he's got powers, and they're non-specific enough that they can do whatever they want with them later in the film. Maybe that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, the cast, like Kate Capshaw's grand in this as well.
Yeah.
She's not egregious. She's not nearly as annoying as she was in the Temple of Doom. But I feel like in the Temple of Doom, that was the point.
Yeah, like no, that is very much her character is meant to be.
Yeah,
like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
There's also an actor that I'm going to bring up here because he's a character actor and he's been in tons of movies, and we've actually come across him in a lot of movies that we've already covered, and I think we will again with future ones, because he's been in like 167 movies or something like this. He always plays these bit actors or these bit characters, and his name is Peter Jason. The reason I bring him up is this will help the wee segue into John Carpenter that we always have to have. John Carpenter, because he was in,
that is inevitable.
Because he was in Ghost of Mars. He was in
Is
They
he in
Live.
Prince of Darkness? He's in Prince of Darkness.
He's
as well,
in Prince
isn't
of Darkness.
He is.
Escape from LA.
Oh,
He's actually in Mortal Kombat as well, and he's in Dante's Peak. So we've come across him so many times that I feel like I need to just kind of give him a shout out here and go, thanks, man.
Yeah, because I remember seeing him in the movie and shouting, "Oh, Prince of Darkness!" Because he is one of the research guys in Prince of Darkness.
Yeah,
but. Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
I keep seeing him everywhere. He's one of those actors, especially like 80s movies. You see that. It's like action movies where you see the same stuntmen in all these movies, and you go,
"Aye,
that's that guy from Die Hard, and he's in this, and he's in that, and he's in Lethal Weapon now, and blah blah blah." But that's very much this guy Peter Jason. he's been in so many movies that I've seen that I just had to like go, nah, he's getting a call out here.
Yeah.
Because all he does in this is
enough.
like pick up Dennis Quaid and bring him to the institute to get hooked up to people's dreams, and that's about it.
Because he's a henchman.
Yeah.
It turns out he's hangs around with this other guy now. It seems he is henching for Christopher Plummer's evil government character guy.
Yeah.
I think ultimately he's one of them, so he is technically a bad guy, but he doesn't really do any bad guy stuff.
Or no, he might be one of the ones that tries to knock Dennis Quaid over while Dennis Quaid is stuck in the telephone box.
That's a good point. Yeah, that was really weird. That scene really confused me. That they just knew he was there somehow. And then this dramatic scene where there's nobody else in the car park and they're just driving at him full pelt. Yeah, that scene was jarring. Yeah, I found.
That whole chase sequence was a bit strange. The main problem with this movie is that it almost tries to do too much. I mean, you've got this whole like reluctant hero thing with Dennis Quaid, like, you know, coming back. You've got like this president assassination attempt, the dream assassination attempt. Mm-hmm. You've got all this like conspiracy stuff. You've got the shoehorned in love story because of course they have to have that. You've even like, you know, Dennis Quaid has this whole like, he's kind of like a jaded character who like, you know, is turned around a bit because this like kid that he meets, you know, for some reason he sparks a friendship with him randomly. And then you've got the guy who I know as Norm from Cheers.
I noticed him as well, who shows up just to be an information dump and then gets shot.
And he's meant to be like a Stephen King type. He's even called something Prince as well.
He's called Charlie Prince. Is his character's name, just like Stephen King. Charlie Prince. Yeah, it's very on the nose. And his book entitled Stab. Very clever.
But that's like I think that's kind of almost what's wrong with this movie is like it's trying too many things. It feels a wee bit muddled, and you're again. Our old friend pacing problems comes in.
It has a similar problem for me that if you've ever seen David Cronenberg's The Dead Zone, which is a film I quite like, but it has a similar sort of structure in that it's about one thing and then it's about a different thing, and then by the end of it, it's about something else.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, where are we going now with The Dead Zone? Like, I like the middle part of The Dead Zone really good.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot. Sorry, that was such bad grammar. I like it really good.
I like it really good.
I like the middle part of The Dead Zone quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I think like the last like 20 minutes of The Dead Zone I don't like.
Yeah.
You know, it's because when he's using his powers to solve crimes and stuff, that's actually really compelling and cool. And then all of a sudden he has to like try and assassinate a politician out of nowhere. Yeah. And you're like, what? It feels like it's like tacked on at the end for a conclusion. And this one, like they seed the presidential stuff at the very beginning, and then they bring it in at the end again.
And it's like at the very beginning, it's so ridiculous as well because you've no context for it at all. You don't know who this guy is, and it's almost pointless to have that scene at the start because you forget about him later. And yes, you eventually find out, but it just felt a bit weird. You know, it doesn't stick in your head or anything. You just kind of you watch the rest of the film, go, okay, well, that was weird.
You have this weird memory of some woman being burned up in a nuclear explosion, and you're like, what the hell is that all about? And then you're like, apparently nothing. Apparently it was about nothing.
Yeah.
And at the end, you're like, okay, I guess this was related to it, but they probably should have saved this for a bit later, and once you had context of what the film was even about at all.
And I kind of. I think maybe it's just because I'm not American, but as soon as a movie has this kind of like, you know, presidential assassin attempt kind of thrown into it, I kind of switch off a wee bit as well. It's just like
it's so cliched.
Yeah, it's you know, unless in fairness, if that's what the movie, like, I mean, you know, JFK is about that, but I mean,
but that's about a real assassination.
About, you know, and even then, it's not really. It's about trying to find out what happened. But anyway, you know, when it's thrown into like movies like this, it just feels a bit cheap. It just like
it's a really easy sort of excuse for like the giving someone a noble purpose.
Yeah.
If I have to save the president of the United States of America. What? No, you don't.
Really? Do you know him?
Do you know? Is he your mate? No, boy, it's a dream hack. I'm a dream hack. I could do it. I gotta be murdered in a dream. But yeah, I like all this stuff. Whenever they actually have that, and I like the stuff in his dream. Actually, towards the end is quite cool. I like the sort of hell-blasted nuclear landscape that they're in.
Yeah, it reminded me of like playing Fallout 3 when you get to the Capitol building and stuff, and you're going,
because it's exactly the same location because it's Washington DC. Yeah, so you see all those kind of things, and you're like, that's cool. And friggin' David Patrick Kelly's leaping about the place like a weird, spry, weirdo acrobat. Just being strange.
Oh, it's so bad as well. Like, it's so nerdy, the nunchuck thing that he does. I watch loads of Bruce Lee. He's like,
I see loads of Bruce Lee movies, so I'm class at this in my dreams with my neon glowing nunchucks.
Oh, it looks so rubbish.
Yeah, it looks really bad. But again, it was in a dream, so it can look terrible.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my excuse. Yeah. So I think I did actually quite enjoy it. I had seen it before a few years ago. And forgotten almost everything about it. I think I might remember better this time, but again, like, it didn't make a huge lasting impression on me.
No,
and I feel like it didn't again this time. Really,
I mean, it's one of those movies, kind of in the spirit of like Mystery Science Theater or Riff Tracks. I think it can be an enjoyable one to watch with friends and kind of take the piss out of. Yeah. Watching it, like, I would never stick this on. I would never want to kind of just sit and watch Dreamscape to enjoy it. If you get me,
sit down with a glass of wine and draw the curtains and watch Dreamscape.
It's not that kind of movie. I think it's very plodding and very, very predictable as well. Of course, but. And as I say, like, too much going on in it for it to make any cohesive sense. But there's enough kind of B-movie-esque schlockiness to it that you can just sit and have a bit of crack with the right kind of people.
Yeah, it's potentially still a night of fun.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. And that's all. I think that's all it needs to be. They were doing some stuff that was maybe a little bit experimental with the effects at the time, and some of them hit and some of them don't. But I think on the whole, I appreciate the effort, and I did enjoy it. Like you said, sometimes it was funny, sometimes when it didn't mean to be, and the music was baffling. But the music did make me laugh because it was so baffling. So I can definitely give it credit for that.
Yeah.
All right, well, I've managed to give John the kick by kicking him, and we've now managed to raise up 2 levels, a little bit too high, sort of in a sort of dreamy sort of cloud kind of world we're in now, which is nice. It's all blue skies and rainbows and extremely freezing temperatures, so that's fun. So I think before he suddenly realizes that gravity is a thing and we fall horribly, horribly down to the ground. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said anything. Well, just think about being lighter than air, John, as we talk about Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street. Ooh. What did you think about A Nightmare on Elm Street?
Well, out of all the dream hackers that we've come across today, I definitely think that Freddy Krueger is the worst one. Not the worst one in ability, the worst one as the one I would least want to be hacking my dreams.
So the most sinister, possibly?
Yeah, that's probably better. I mean, especially considering that he's like a child murderer and all that as well.
That's a thing. That's a thing I think a lot of people forget.
Yeah.
When they talk about the character of Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you look a lot of other media that he has appeared in, they seem to forget that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a Run DMC song that he's in. It's like featuring Freddy Krueger. and he showed up in like a lot of ads for stuff in the late 80s and things like that, advertising things. And then you go back and you watch A Nightmare on Elm Street and you're like, oh, this is weird. And then as the film goes on, you get a bit of backstory about why Freddy is the way he is.
Yeah.
And why he's doing the horrible things that he's doing. And then it's like, how the hell did they justify using him to like advertise, like, I don't know, marshmallows and stuff or whatever the hell it is that he's shown up?
I think the problem was they start, because they kind of, I mean, even from the get-go, they have him kind of wisecracking and
he's a dick.
Yeah.
He's openly a dick. And he doesn't have like a lot of one-liners. That would sort of come later in the series in like 3, 4, and 5, those films, where he started calling people bitch all the time for no reason. That doesn't really happen in this.
No.
Very much.
It's diminishing returns definitely with this franchise. You know.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I would say that the second one is absolute trash.
Oh yeah, actually, I forgot. That's the one where the guy's kind of getting possessed by Freddy.
It's completely unnecessary. It's a completely unnecessary thing. It's totally a cash. Now, Wes Craven didn't direct any of the 80s sequels. He did one other one, which is one I actually do really, really like. Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yeah.
Which is extremely meta and weird conceptually, where Heather Langenkamp, who plays Nancy in this film and a lot of the sequels, is playing herself in the 90s. And it's very, very odd. It's a very strange film. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about this film. Now, Heather Langenkamp's performance in this film, I don't know if anybody in this film could be said to be necessarily delivering a great performance.
No, I mean,
except
they're all quite young as well. They're they're all quite inexperienced. Sorry, is kind of what I really want to say. And I mean, Heather Langenkamp goes from like really timid to like explosively crazy at the drop of a hat, and vice versa, like back and forth. But again, it's up to the director to direct them right as well. But it's hard to say, because this movie is almost the definition of schlock.
Oh yeah, it is. It is, isn't it? It's like, it's so openly just embracing of being schlocky. And it's like, a lot of people would like put it in similar sort of like genre kind of things, as like, they'd say that it's like a slasher movie, and it kind of is a slasher movie. In like,
I mean, slasher movies, it's one of those terms that kind of a lot of things get kind of almost unjustly thrown into. I mean, like the character or the entity of Freddy Krueger is much more than a slasher. Like, someone who can come into your dreams and really fuck you up and like a myriad of different ways. I mean, what he does to Johnny Depp's character in this is horrendous. That
is, like, I think some of it's very silly throughout this movie, but again, people look at Freddy Krueger through the lens of like other media, and maybe some of the stuff from the sequels where it gets a little silly.
Yeah.
But some really nasty stuff happens to people, that he does to people in this movie. That is maybe the most, like, if you're not prepared for it, is extremely shocking.
Yeah.
When that happens, in particular, when Johnny Depp eats it. Because it's like, he's just liquefied.
Yeah.
And it's horrific. And even when you hear the cops who've shown up talking about it, and then one of the cops is like, there's an ambulance there, and they're pulling a stretcher out of the ambulance, and one of the cops says, you're not going to need that, guys, you're going to need a bucket and a mop. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's not what you want to hear.
And even like the first like proper like kill in the movie is pretty horrific.
Yeah.
It's her friend.
Blonde girl. That's what I call her friend.
Her
blonde girl. She's not
girl.
in it long enough.
Yeah. It's Tina. She's called Tina, and she's getting killed in her dreams, but you see her get killed in reality while her like boyfriend is on the floor, and she's being like slashed open and then like dragged up the wall.
And like just what you kind of mentioned when we were talking about Dreamscape, where it's in a dream, so you can kind of forgive the effects looking kind of rubbish.
Yeah.
Whenever she's in the dream being chased by the Freddy, like he's the whole big long arm thing in the alleyway, which looks a bit daft, and but then it kind of gets it progressively gets better and better looking, where he cuts his fingers off to kind of show like, you can't hurt me. He rips his face off. And then when it goes to the real world, just what you're explaining there, where like she's spinning around, it looks really good.
Yeah.
And like, it looks almost real, and kind of his reaction's very good. Her boyfriend is just freaking out going, what the fuck is going on?
He's hiding in the corner and is freaking out. Yeah, he doesn't know what the fuck to do. And yeah, it's like she is lifted up and sliced and then slammed into the wall and dragged up the wall and onto the ceiling, and it's horrific. This horrific sort of blood trail that's being left, and there's blood everywhere, and he is freaking out and screaming, and it's kind of harrowing. And then it's done. She's just dropped to the floor in a bloody pulp, and then it's just everyone's freaking out and screaming, and he's away. And you're just kind of like shell-shocked, like, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. Especially if you're not familiar, I can imagine I will never have this experience, because before I saw this film, even the first time I saw it, I understood the concept of Freddy Krueger because of that thing of him being all pervasive in other media.
Yeah, because this movie came out the year we were born, much like Dreamscape. So Freddy Krueger was already the big star.
Yeah. But you can imagine, like, if you went into this film just like, haha, in 1984, say you were like 18 or whatever, 20 in 1984, and you were like, right, let's go see this latest horror movie that we know nothing about, and you are initially confronted with like this stuff in the dreams where it's like, this looks ridiculous, and then all of a sudden you're hit with that. You might be just like, oh my god, this is actually, because I mean there was a lot of uproar at the time.
Oh yeah.
Just generally with video nasty, the concept of the video nasty and all that stuff, but this in particular was like so incredibly violent and bloody and gory. You had like the Friday the 13th movies were sort of ramping up at this time. But it was a different thing, whereas there's something much more insidious and frightening about, I think, the concept of Freddy Krueger. Yeah. Because as long as you're awake, you're fine. But the problem is that everybody has to sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, they communicate that in this movie where it's like she's trying to stay awake and she's finding it harder and harder and harder to stay awake, and like taking like caffeine pills and neck and coffee and stuff, and looking really, really, really unhealthy because she's terrified of going to sleep.
She says at one point, God, I look like I'm 20 years old. Which another level to that is the actress who plays her was actually 20 years old at the time, which I enjoyed when I found that out. But this all comes from apparently Wes Craven got the idea for this from it was Southeast Asian refugees escaping the Pol Pot, and apparently they were having these really bad nightmares, and they couldn't sleep, or they refused to sleep, and they were exhausted. Anytime they tried to sleep, they were waking up screaming, like, so they weren't getting enough sleep. They weren't going into the REM sleep, and when they died eventually, and the autopsy results revealed that they hadn't died of heart failure, they had simply died. And it actually ended up getting, like, the medical authorities started calling it Asian death syndrome, which is a bit daft. But he was reading articles about this, and this is where he got the idea of, like, you know, it not being like a medical thing almost. Like, it's about this entity out to get you, about this person hunting you in your dreams, somewhere where you should be safe but you're not. And it's a great concept for a horror.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I think that's the reason it impacted people so much when they first saw it, and how it was able to spawn so many such a successful series.
Yeah.
After
and I mean,
this one
I think kind of, you know, people of our age seen it when they were too young to have seen it. You know, we obviously didn't see it when it came out.
No,
but
it would have definitely been too young then.
But I think, like, anyone kind of in their mid-30s who have seen it will generally say, yes, Freddy frightened the life out of me. I couldn't sleep for weeks or months or years, you know.
Yeah.
And, like, that's why, because, it is this, it's almost this primal thing of, you know, how do you protect yourself? You know, you're at your most vulnerable when you're sleeping. Yeah. And this is when he gets you.
Yeah. And I was probably about 12, I think, 11 or 12 probably when I first saw this movie. And it's so violent and messed up. And you want to talk about, like, no, yes, their performances are, like, John Saxon, I think, is all right.
Yeah. Well, he's probably the most seasoned actor in the movie.
And Ronnie Blakely, who plays her mother, who people will also remember maybe from Candyman, she was in.
Yes, yeah.
As well. She was the lead in Candyman. So she's a good actress. And, like, I think she is playing the character. She's playing quite well. It's just that she's playing someone who is out of it.
Yeah.
They
don't try to hide it. It's not like the mother from E.T. who, like, we kind of we were surmising, and I think we had plenty of evidence, but, you know, this shows you this shows you the mother lying in bed with an empty bottle of vodka at one point.
She's hiding booze around the house even as well.
Yeah.
You see her like, you think she's all like, oh, I've not had a drink and and then she's looking at her out in the hallway and she's hidden a bottle of vodka in, like, with the towels, you know.
Yeah.
She pulls a bottle of vodka out of there and starts necking it in the hallway, and you're like, oh yeah, this woman is an addict, and this girl would probably be a lot better off living with her dad. Yeah. But she isn't, and she's stuck here.
She also just seems a lot closer with her dad. It's a weird setup. Like, the mother and father obviously split up, but like, even the way she reacts with her dad seems a lot more familial. Like,
they're more easygoing. They have much more of a rapport than she does with her mother. Her and her mother seem quite adversarial.
And whether or not this is, and I'm sure it was intentional, I would hope so, but it works very well, because you are left with those questions of, why is she with this drunkard of a mother, you know?
Yeah, I think it's easier to explain in as much as, you know, you hear a lot about statistics about, like, in cases of divorce, generally the mother tends to be favoured when it comes to custody of the children. So in the sort of general zeitgeist of people's minds, they probably it's easier for them to imagine, okay, these parents are divorced and the kids live with the mum.
Yeah.
That is the most common thing. So I guess it's just like, when someone's writing this story, they're thinking about, oh, someone, you know, being the child of divorce, they're assuming, well, they've probably lived with the mother.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do a number on her as far as painting her as maybe not as the less responsible of the parents in the family unit. So yeah, she should maybe be living with her dad, but she's not. But he's good. She's good as the mother. She does a good performance. Yeah, the kids are all telling Johnny Depp's bad. Heather Langenkamp is so overwrought.
They're not the worst.
Not awful.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's watchable, and again, those schlocky films, you can go in and enjoy them for what they are, and this one is very much like, they're not distractingly bad. But yeah, they're definitely, especially like with the likes of Johnny Depp, you know, who I consider a very good actor, and, you know, he's proved himself in a lot of things later, but, you know, he's yet to kind of find himself as an actor at this stage.
I think Heather Langenkamp gets better she's in 3 and 4 and 5 and The New Nightmare, and she's actually quite good in those.
Yeah.
So yes, and people to move on. I think Robert Englund is brilliant in this.
Yeah. It should be mentioned as well. This is Johnny Depp's film debut. This is
it says introducing Johnny Depp at the beginning.
So there you go. Like,
yeah.
He does well for that. Apparently, he only got the role because Wes Craven's daughter said he was dreamy. Ooh. I don't know if this is true or not, but I read that and probably is.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, but I think this film always, ever since I first saw it, had a lasting impression on me.
Yeah.
Because it's genuinely creepy. Freddy is genuinely a creep.
Yeah.
In the most, like, I mean, he really is a creep.
Yeah.
You know, he's a child murderer.
Yeah.
Who was...
They were actually going to... Initially, he was meant to be a paedophile as well, but they didn't want to... There was actually a case... there was a case around the time involving the child molestation, and they didn't want to think that they were, kind of exploiting that. And that's why they took that out. But they didn't even need it because he is creepy enough.
Yeah, the way he behaves and the things he says, and even like the way he even smiles when he's chasing him down. I
mean, there's even like subtle, kind of sexual things that he does. Like whenever Nancy's taking a bath and the claws come up right between her legs, before the mother knocks on the door. There's something very sinister and kind of horrible about that just kind of makes your spine kind of tingle.
Yeah, and when he shoves his tongue down the phone as well,
like he is just horrible. He is just the worst.
And again, it is weird that gets lost when you think about Freddy Krueger in a wider context.
Yeah.
And you see him in other things and you're like, no, it's weird that he became this cultural touchstone in the way that he has. But I think it's just the design of the character is very iconic, so it's easily recognizable and people are easy to divorce the image from the character.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it's the fact that he's got that hat and he's got the red and green striped jumper and one clawed hand, and like that's really easy to pick out in a silhouette and reference, and his weird is the way his face is burnt and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, even in the sequels, he's still like a creep in the sequels. Like I really like I say the second one's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And is kind of dull. I think the second one.
I think that's the worst part about the second one. Yeah, it is very dull.
Yeah, but they properly bring Freddy Krueger back and Heather Langenkamp back as Nancy in 3 and 4 and 5 and A New Nightmare. And I really, really enjoy those films a lot. I think this is, as far as horror films, as far as the horror goes, this is the best one of them. But the sequels are pretty good.
It also sets up, they do a great job of really creating this character and really, they as we said, he gets kind of ruined later. But they show you what he's about, how he's killing, what makes him unique, and what these movies essentially, and like none of them stray from it. Every one of these movies is. He goes into your dreams. He's after the kids of the parents who burnt him when he was alive, who killed him when he was alive, as a weird kind of revenge. Which
that's assuming we do not include, and we don't include Freddy versus Jason as being part of this. Because I wouldn't include that as either being part of either franchise.
No.
It's just this weird cash-in that the studio decided to do because they realized, here, we own both these properties now.
Yeah.
Let's do this. So that, it doesn't get held up in that. But all the way up to A New Nightmare, it definitely holds true. That he is always this creep, and he is always like, generally ugh. If I may use the term ugh, that's
unfortunately it seems like the best way to really describe him is just he is just he's ugh.
Yeah, he's horrible, and Robert Englund's performance is real good because he's able to communicate that really well, and like just the way he smiles and like
that's another thing about
looks.
It's another thing about the I don't know if it's the luck or or whatever they had, but he wasn't their initial choice for Freddy. They were going to go for someone kind of bigger and more imposing and intimidating.
Yeah.
Which kind of I prefer this idea of. I think someone at one point said it might have been the actor who portrays him said he kind of played it off more like a weasel, more kind of rat-like, and it works so much better because it adds that level of creepiness where we've already got the big imposing, we've got our Jasons, we've got our,
Michael Myers,
well. These unstoppable forces. Like, there's something a lot more horrible about Freddy Krueger, that he's not this physically imposing thing, but he's probably worse than those two combined.
Yeah, and like he has motivations in a way that Michael Myers and Jason don't.
Yeah.
Like, they tried to give Michael Myers this weird backstory as that series went on, and that series really went off the rails in an awful way, like almost immediately after Halloween 1. That series was just like, why are you even doing this anymore? Jason is a fun one to watch because in the Friday the 13th movies, it's like, oh, how's it going to escalate? He just wants to murder teens in general.
Yeah.
Whereas Freddy has a drive.
Yeah.
You know, Freddy's got drive behind him. Freddy has this creepy motive, you know, like. And
it's a twisted motive. It's one that, well, I would hope that no one would agree with,
Yeah.
But and like even the reason the parents in Elm Street killed Freddy was because the police couldn't get him because someone filled the search warrant in wrong. If this movie is to be believed,
he got off on a technicality, I think, but the way they describe it is kind of really offhand. And
it's like there was bound to be more than just the search warrant on this guy.
Yeah,
but no, like. So that I don't know why they almost feel ashamed of it. I wouldn't. This guy's
I mean, they
child
did the right
murderer.
thing.
I would be like, no, you know what? Sometimes some vigilante justice is called for.
Oh, John. Oh. Let's not get political now.
No.
Because we don't know what we're talking about. No. Yay.
I just mean Batman.
Exactly, yeah. Sometimes you need Batman and sometimes he's not around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to burn yourself a child molester. Anyway. No, I do like this, I guess spoilers for the end of A Nightmare on Elm Street. But there's a certain type of ending that I dislike intensely. And this movie does a great job of doing the literal opposite of that.
Yeah.
That I really like. I hate the ending of we didn't know what to do, so we just have someone wake up and this was all a dream.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that this movie in particular turns that on its head.
Yeah.
Where you have an ending where you think she has succeeded against Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
You know, by like turning her back on him and taking away his power.
Basically just berating him.
Yeah,
it's kind of where It Chapter 2 got its ideas.
Yeah, the fact that they just did that straight up as opposed to doing it and then twisting it, unlike this movie does, where they twist it and you're like, oh, suddenly it's as if she has undone the past, all the terrible things that have happened.
Yeah, and
then you're kind of like, well, that sucks, and then it's like, nope, she hasn't. This is a dream and everything's fucked, and all these people who were, my friends are alive again. No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're all dead. Johnny Depp is still a puddle.
Johnny Depp is still a puddle.
Yeah, Johnny Depp is still a puddle, and there goes Dream Mother getting like, now in a really, again, because it's a dream, you can forgive this, the way she gets pulled through.
The mannequin getting pulled through.
The tiny window in the front door by the evil hand. I really like how they do that because it is the genuine mirror opposite of the ending I hate.
Well, do you know Wes Craven apparently didn't want this ending? He wanted it to be a happy ending, and
I noticed that. I haven't seen. I know there's like 3 alternate endings.
Yeah. He was pushing for the happy ending where
Yeah.
It would be what you kind of hit there.
Right.
Well, I imagine that's what his definition of the happy ending would be. That she just drives away with her friends and yay, everyone's alive. But I forget who it was, but someone quite rightfully pushed for this ending and they got it.
Yeah, the ending in this is great. I really like how this ends.
And they wanted it. It must have been a producer because it was specifically so that they could make a franchise out of it, and they could continue having stories, but maybe for the wrong reason. But it is a better ending than what you're saying of like, yeah, just. Oh, I woke up from a dream. It was all a dream. And then you just sit there and go, well, I just wasted an hour and a half of my time then. Nothing is worse than people telling you about their dreams.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah. Trying to describe again, like I was saying earlier about when you're trying to describe a dream you had to someone and how scary it was. And then as you're saying, you're like, this is not scary at all. This just makes me look like a fucking imbecile. Yeah. Which, is the reason I'm doing this sort of forgiving the dream logic in some of these films, like in Dreamscape mostly, but for Freddy Krueger as well. Like they make it the weird, like the way the places are interconnected in ways that the way they shouldn't be makes sense to me. Yeah, and like the way it is in a dream, and like the weird things that he does, like his big stupid stretchy out arms where he's scratching the alleyway makes sense because it's a dream. Or like, the evil boiler room under the school that she finds herself in, like through a seemingly logical way, but doesn't make any sense.
Oh, Freddy's very partial to boiler rooms.
Indeed. Well, he apparently was burned alive in a boiler room.
I would imagine that'd be the last place you'd want to go then.
Yeah, their explanation for that actually doesn't make a lot of sense when they say that they tracked him down to his weird hidey place that was a boiler room that they surrounded, but they make it sound like it's just a room with a boiler in it on its own. Usually a boiler room is inside a building somewhere in the rest of the building.
It's usually on the side of a building or down below in the basement.
Underneath, yeah. See, in my head, I imagine it's in a basement.
Yeah.
Usually, but for the context of this, you know what? I'm not going to pick this apart because it's a dumb film about a man that comes into people's dreams and slices them up with his finger knives. So ultimately, I'm fine with that. So I like the effects a lot in this movie. I think they are appropriate for the film.
Yeah.
It looks the gore in it's quite good. It's not. They use a lot of blood, but they don't necessarily show you a lot of like viscera or anything like that.
Yeah.
You don't see bits of people very much or anything like that. I do like it when he slices his fingers off, like you mentioned earlier. Yeah. That's fun. That's a fun little moment.
And then there's also that bit where to Nancy he like cuts open his chest and there's all maggots and stuff. That's the closest you really get to any kind of viscera or anything like that.
Yeah. And when you see things move, like there's a point where she falls asleep in class.
Yes.
And she sees Tina in a body bag, in a weird see-through body bag.
Yeah.
And it's really grisly. And you're sort of seeing her being dragged around the place by an invisible force.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is great. That's the part of this movie I always think of when I think about A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
I think about the part where she stumbles out into the corridor and looks around and sees the body at the other end, and then the legs on it jerk up.
Yeah.
And gets dragged out of sight. That bit always stuck with me. That was the bit that freaked me out the most. She's following this body of her friend around the place that was being dragged. Yeah, so I think that stuff's really effective.
Yeah.
So I think this movie works overall as just a great horror movie. It's unsettling. It has an antagonist that can get you no matter where you go or what you do. You always have to sleep.
Yeah.
And he's creepy and horrible, and I think that works really, really well. Okay, well, I'm getting that weird sinking feeling now that Joseph Gordon-Levitt or whoever has given us the kick. Or maybe it's that kid from Dante's Peak that looks like Joseph Gordon-Levitt because we couldn't afford him. I don't know. But either way, I feel like I'm falling backwards in slow-mo, and we're all about to wake up. But I also see something in the mists of these clouds that's coming very quickly towards us, but far enough away that we can take our time to continue to discuss how to stop this unknown individual in their tracks before they get here, John, and do some bad business to you. So I'm pretty sure I can't be hurting your dream. Can I?
Depends what sedative you took.
Oh, no. I took the one in the brown bottle.
Oh no, you're ending up in limbo.
Oh, am I vulnerable? Oh no. Okay, well then we need to get this sorted out quickly. But despite that level of urgency, I feel like we should sit down and talk first about which one of these three movies we thought was the best movie.
We've got loads of time, sure. The time moves slower in Dreams.
Because of dilation, 10%.
Not all of that, exactly.
Exponential? Is it exponential?
If we need more time, we can just...
Wow.
Exactly.
Go on, John, hit me with your opinion.
It's really between two. Damn it.
Right, yes.
It's really between A Nightmare on Elm Street and Inception for me. But I think Nightmare on Elm Street just edges Inception out.
Just cinches it, does it? There,
I enjoy it more. I just have a better time with Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's the schlock level, do you think? Is that what's doing it?
You know,
as a man who has mentioned Birdemic multiple times on this podcast, I could see that easily happening, yes.
Well, see, going into this, I thought it was going to be Inception, and there's probably a lot of people will just sit there and go, what an idiot. Because it's you know, on a technical level, I realise it's a much better movie. It's, you know, in many ways, and I don't know. It's, for me, it just does come down to what one would I stick on randomly in a couple of weeks, and it's always going to be A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. I think I know what you mean. You can talk about technical ability or whatever, and I think Wes Craven is a good filmmaker. He is, definitely. He has made a lot of films that I really like. I mean, I really like The Hills Have Eyes. I think The Hills Have Eyes is brilliant. I do have an affection for his version of Swamp Thing. Yes. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's good as such.
The Hills Have Eyes is actually what kind of locked him into becoming this kind of horror director. He actually directed porn, I think, before then.
Did he?
Yeah, he was a porn director. He was using a different name so that his family and stuff wouldn't know. But apparently that kind of The Hills Have Eyes got him stuck on that path because no one wanted him to do anything else. You know, he couldn't get funded for any other types of movies, which is kind of a bit sad. But
horror,
he did well
cheap,
out of it,
I guess. Yeah. I like his version of the. He did the original Last House on the Left as well.
Yes,
which I quite like. There was a dreadful remake of that that came out in the 2000s era. Again, committed one of those cardinal sins of this kind of movie by just being boring.
Yeah.
You know, it was dull and predictable. And even though I guess it's predictable because I'd already seen the original film that it was a remake of, but it didn't do anything interesting or new with it, which I think is a terrible thing. If you're going to remake a film, it should be with a view to you thinking this film could have been better and it could have been better like this.
Yeah.
And then you trying to do it that way, trying to do something to it that takes the basic concept that maybe was a good idea and then maybe bringing its execution in a different way.
Yeah.
Much like John Carpenter's The Thing.
John Carpenter.
Being sort of a remake of The Thing from Another World. In that it's referential to that original film, but is much more like, I think he saw that and was like, this would be better if the creature in it was actually more closely based on the one from the novella. Because in the original one, it's not at all. It's like a weird plant
man
creature that's stomping around like Frankenstein's monster, and like it looks real stupid, and like it looks kind of
the movie version of Frankenstein's monster.
Because
that's another thing that's been ruined.
The Universal monster, the Universal Pictures monster version of Frankenstein's monster. Yes, it's kind of like that.
This is like Inception now.
We're so many levels deeper here. But anyway, so we're getting so far off the track. But yes, Wes Craven has made some great movies. Now, he did the Scream movies, which are a weird, like, almost meta criticism of slashers as well, which is kind of clever. And he did that after doing Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is also a weird
meta criticism of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
So he's, he makes good movies. I think he is a good filmmaker and he's made great films. But I understand your point about the difference between a film like Inception,
yeah,
on like a cinematic level of just being this like marvel that you would go and you would see it on the big screen and just be blown away by it.
I think as well, it's also something I touched on earlier, where to me Inception, the first time you see it, because it's all new and there's so much information and there's so much explanation, we mentioned Ariadne in it, that her character exists simply to be told all the mechanisms of how this all works.
Yeah.
And I likened it to a tutorial of a game.
Mm-hmm.
And much in the same way that if I play a game and it has an unskippable cutscene, that will do my head in, especially if I have to play it over and over again. Say it's like a difficult boss fight or something.
Yeah.
So I kind of have that, where a good portion of Inception I could probably do without and have the same experience the second time round, and it's not to say it's a bad movie, because it needs all that. Unfortunately, just for the concept of it and everything he's trying to do, if he left it out, then it would be a confusing mess that you would just go in and go, I don't know anything, what was he doing with that wee spinny thing?
yeah.
But so that's why, I would have to pick Nightmare on Elm Street. There's probably a good deal of nostalgia as well, because I think we're both in the same boat here, where the first time we seen this movie, we were probably too young to really have seen it, and Freddy left his mark on us, essentially.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think maybe, I'm not sure, like, I like Christopher Nolan's sort of, his whole, look what movies can do now, and it's so impressive, and the fact that it's like weird dream logic, but I feel like, and I guess it's the point of the movie, is that the worlds are supposed to be believable, that they're in, for the sake of the dreamer, not sussing out that they're in a dream, which is why, you almost would wonder, like, if the film was maybe thematically a little bit different, how wild could they get with that?
Yeah.
But it is very real places. They do cool stuff with that in the context of it being a real place and it twisting and being strange, and that's cool. But then you compare that to something like Dreamscape, where you have this entire, like, this whole place is just odd. Every time they go into someone's dreams, it's strange and otherworldly, and, they really had to build some odd sets for that.
Yeah.
And also for A Nightmare on Elm Street, like...
It would be interesting to see what a decent director, a decent team could do with Dreamscape now, just as there's a lot more effects and things like that at their disposal.
Yeah.
It would be interesting, because it's kind of difficult to because at the end of the day, Inception does borrow a lot from Dreamscape.
Yeah.
The core idea is there. So so maybe that's answered my question. Maybe that's what happens. Inception is literally just that. But it's a bit hard to compare something that was made in 1984 to something that was made in 2010.
Yeah.
And compare it and kind of go, well, this one looks better. Yeah, no shit.
Of course
the
it
fucking
does.
2010 one looks better.
Of course it does. But I think I might have to go for A Nightmare on Elm Street as well. Because, again, I like horror movies anyway. I do.
That's kind of your thing.
It's my preferred genre, ultimately. I do have a lot of time for cinema in general, and I love a lot of different kinds of films, but I have a particular predilection towards horror movies. And I'd say I'd call myself a bit of a fan of Wes Craven, because he's made some great movies. And this one in particular is, again, I enjoy how sinister the concept of Freddy Krueger is at its most base level. It's not a complicated, Inception is again, a lot of Christopher Nolan films are pretend to be more complicated than they are.
Yeah.
But that is also part of the fun of them. I like that about them. And the concept, they do like overcomplicate things a wee bit too much in Inception. Dreamscape is sort of simple, but they're playing around with rules here and there and stuff, whereas Freddy Krueger and A Nightmare on Elm Street is actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You know, it is, and I'm not saying that it's better because of that, but I really appreciate, especially in a horror movie, a simple base premise is very important.
Yeah.
You know, and if that is something that is easily understood and clever at the same time, that is just a really great sort of base to build your film on. Like, again, I know I'm going to bring it up again, but in John Carpenter's The Thing,
John Carpenter,
the whole concept.
I'm going to have to limit you.
I know, I'm sorry, but it's a really good example for a lot of different concepts. So, like, the idea of a creature that can look like anyone and anything is a simple concept, but is terrifying because it can be anyone. Whereas, you know, and it's maybe unavoidable because of that, in the same way that Freddy Krueger is unavoidable because everybody has to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And he'll come at you in your dream, and if he kills you in your dream, you die in real life. You know, it's in the same way. The Matrix is actually a really simple concept, but it works really well because it's in the ad campaigns for the Matrix. They were like, "Oh, what is the Matrix? What is the Matrix?" But then when they tell you what it is in the movie, you're able to understand it immediately.
Yeah, it's the sequels that really kind of ruin. Yeah, very much like Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, after a while, the sequels do start destroying what makes it work.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, another one, and they are making another Matrix film at the minute. I don't know if maybe they actually just wrapped on it recently. I'm not sure, but they've been filming it. Like, just stopped. One was enough, and you know, you could say that about Nightmare on Elm Street. That one was enough. I enjoy the sequels.
Yeah.
I enjoy some of the sequels to Nightmare on Elm Street, I'll say. But though none of them had anything to do with Wes Craven. He gets a credit because he wrote the character, you know, and it's his thing. But
just what you're saying there, like, it being a simple concept and it working better than that, then I would agree with that. And also I'd say that, like, one of the things that makes Inception, or made Inception very popular and it grossed a lot, is also one of its biggest failings, and it's what we said earlier, where you have to kind of go in, you know, switched on a bit, because there is a lot going on, and it is a clever movie, but as we said many times, it still has these plot holes, and it's still not maybe as clever as it thinks, or as some people think. So you have to go in and kind of blindside yourself to certain things, or ignore certain aspects of it to make for the rest to make sense, and that can be a wee bit tiring when all you want to do is stick on a movie and just, you know, just sit and watch something. Or even if you want that cerebral thing, you know, maybe it's not the best choice. It's like this weird middle ground with Inception, where if you want to sit and like really pick something apart, then maybe you do want to put that on if your goal is to get something you can completely rip apart. But
I mean, it's entirely subjective about which one of these films is the best film. We're not gonna sit here and solely say, oh, objectively this is the best film, because someone could legitimately sit here and say that, oh, well, of course Dreamscape is the best of these films because, or
and then you go away, Dennis Quaid.
Go away, Dennis Quaid. How did you get in here, Dennis Quaid? You dreamed me up. But you know, you could sit and legitimately have a conversation about why Inception is a better film, is a more entertaining or engaging film than A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
But I have to say that I am kind of with you with the, in a month or two's time, if there was one of these films that I was presented with here, do you want to watch one of these again? You have to watch one of these three films again. Like, I'm going to sit down and watch A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Because it's fun. And I know that's not the be-all and end-all of movies. You know, they are entertainment, and they, you know, it should be fun most of the time. I mean, there's an argument to be made for being cerebral and philosophical and exploring deeper concepts, which I think Inception does fairly well. It explores a lot of stuff about trauma. Yeah. I think that is worth exploring and does it pretty well. I think they're kind of decent about that throughout the runtime of the movie, with Cobb and his sort of how affected he was by the death of his wife.
Yeah.
It really, really hurt him, and that's a very, very real thing. But again, I'm a horror fan. I love A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm just going to definitely easily say that I would most like, of all these three films, I like Nightmare on Elm Street definitely the most.
Yeah.
So I think we're agreed on that. Now,
most definitely.
Now, which of these films gives us the skills and the knowledge that we need to outwit or get away from or fight and to kill or whatever an impending dream hacker who's got it in for us?
I mean, they all kind of have the same relative concept of, I think Tom Hardy's character says it at some point, don't be afraid to dream big, darling.
Yes.
When he conjures up a grenade launcher.
Which he never does at any point later in the film, and it would be handy, but it's just...
We already said we weren't talking about the plot holes anymore.
I know.
It is kind of difficult not to.
It's fairly egregious, though, that only at one point when it's funny can he conjure up something from his imagination, but then later on when it would be really handy to do that, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I would have conjured up a magic spell of healing for Sato. But anyway, so I don't know. It's almost a question of like what one kind of explains it better, I suppose, because
Inception explains it most.
Yeah, explains it most. It's
Dreamscape doesn't really go into the why-tos and the wherefores. They have a special machine, okay, and in Inception they have a special machine as well.
Yeah,
but
Dreamscape also has the added problem of you almost have to be the chosen one in a way. You have to be the best of the best, which sorry to speak for you, but I don't think we are the best of the best.
I don't think so either. But I think they use that as a way to skip over some technical questions that you might have.
Yeah.
By having him be, he's also naturally non-specifically gifted. Yeah.
He went to the Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youth.
Exactly, but he was like, we don't understand what he is. He's non-specifically gifted. He can just do the things best. So that's not very helpful. In Inception, they do imply that anyone can just do it, and they explain why.
Yeah.
Up to a point, anyway, at least. They explain why. Freddy Krueger just seems to do it because he's raging.
Yeah.
He wants revenge. Revenge
actually,
is enough of a...
When you think about it, Nancy only really fights back when she gets raging. Like, I mean, as far as, like... Because you're really talking mental power in a dream. Mm-hmm. The physical obviously isn't going to be much use to you because your physical body is dormant at this stage, let's say. But towards the end of Nightmare on Elm Street, it's when she's getting just completely fed up with having to deal with Freddy day in, day out and not getting any sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That she, as we said, she basically berates him and goes, you can't hurt me. And kind of ignores him.
Yeah, she gets so angry with him that she decides to ignore him.
And you know what? I'm pretty damn good at ignoring my problems.
That's really, you know what? I agree with that.
Which might be why my dreamland is a nightmarish hellscape.
Yeah, indeed. Well, at least we're about 3,000 feet above it right now in weird cloudland. Yeah. With weird things in the clouds that may or may not be dream hacking sharks. I don't know. It's hard to say. If we turn our back on them and ignore them, is that going to work? Because her other thing is that she brings it out into the real world and wants to twat it with a baseball bat.
And actually, you know what? We have to disqualify it because she doesn't actually deal with the problem in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Because
she doesn't, does she?
Our usual thing of like, no, that one gets disqualified automatically because he gets them in the end. So
it does indeed.
I think it's going to be Inception. I think
is it?
It has to be.
What's our method then? Getting kicked?
Yeah, just kick me.
We need to let this kick. All right, so I'm going to give you a really hard boot.
Right.
All right.
Anywhere in particular?
I think it's better that you don't know. Okay. All right. Close your eyes and okay. Whoa. Okay. So we were on a bus this whole time. It turns out. You all right
I feel
John?
Very well rested now.
You feeling pretty pep? Oh look, our stop is coming up. Well, isn't that convenient? Oh, Oh, well, that's the Dream Hackers defeated for now. All you have to do is not fall asleep again from here on, okay?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I have a ridiculous caffeine addiction anyway, so...
All right, cool. Well, you better put some ice on that wound I've given you in your nethers. Okay, so that's all we have time for this week with our stop coming up. So we are on Twitter. We are at 7-Day Apocalypse. That is at numeral 7-Day Apocalypse. If you want to email us just for a wee chat, any comments, queries, questions, whatever, you can get to us on filmcast at thisweeksapocalypse.com. That is filmcast at thisweeksapocalypse.com. I'm just going to ring the wee bell here for our stop. We're going to get up, and I guess we'll see you later, all right? Bye! Jesus Christ.